Hi, Glenn. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
So I wanted to say that as a designer, from time to time, I search the web for work that inspires me. And
Okay.
I came across your work for the first time at Behance, and I have to be honest, man, your work is awesome. And for those who hasn't seen your style, it looks like watercolors, but
hmm
saying that is almost too limiting. It's like watercolors if you were to combine it with rock and roll, cool typography, and killer graphic design. And just congratulations on an awesome portfolio. So,
Thanks, Chris.
yeah, absolutely. And before I ask my first question, where should listeners go to see your work?
You can go to my website, which is glennwolkdesign.com, or you could go to Behance, and I think it's like behance.com/glennwolk, Glenn, two N's, WOLK.
Awesome.
Probably two best places I would say. Oh, there's also my Instagram, of course, which is at glennwolk.
Yeah, and for anybody listening, I definitely recommend you looking at his work while we're asking Glenn some questions. And the first question is, as a designer and artist, your work combines different disciplines like design and art. Now, how was the style developed?
Uh, well, I initially studied. I always wanted to be a painter. Growing up, grew up here in New York, in the suburbs, and I painted, and I did in high school, and I wanted to go. I wanted to be a painter essentially, and my father said to me, you could be a painter if you want, but I want you to learn graphic design, so you have something to fall back on. And since he was basically paying for my college, essentially, I went along. And the first 2 years of school, I studied basically graphic design, and I enjoyed it, but I really wanted to get back to painting. And following that, I ended up studying fine art. So I did 2 years of graphic design, then I did fine art. Ended up getting actually a master's degree in painting, and then I graduated and sort of met my wife and decided, we have to make a living, so it's not quite that easy to make a living painting right away, especially having children and whatnot. So I had a graphic design job, and then slowly I was a lot of the painting I missed, and I was doing painting, and the painting sort of started seeping back into my work, and until it got to the point where I was pretty much only painting my design, and I'm gonna close my window because there's construction going on here in Brooklyn. There we go. Okay, we so I started painting. The painting seeped back, and watercolor always seemed for design. I like watercolor because it's quick. I paint it and it dries, and you could scan it really quickly. Also, I mean, I studied painting, oil painting, and that just doesn't work for graphic design. So, but the watercolor always seemed to work. But then there's a sort of elusive, magical quality to watercolor because it's sort of transparent. I could even scan things and layer them
Yeah.
if I wanted to, and it's very malleable. So the hand done. The hand done quality of it also seemed refreshing. I mean, still refreshing, not as refreshing as it was 15 or 20 years ago, maybe, but it's still refreshing to me. And it's different. It's not the hard edge quality of using, Adobe Illustrator and pounding out type on it. So it worked for me, and it's been really nice because I've been able to use my painting background and my design background and create something a little different for myself.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, man. When I was looking at your portfolio and
hmm
yours, I just can't stop scrolling. I mean, you have so much work, and a lot of it's just like eye candy. I can't wait to see the next one. Which, yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
And I want to really ask this question because I think most people that are artists that also know graphic design, you've found your successes as an artist as well, which is very difficult these days. And so I
hmm
want to ask you a question that's going to be probably multifaceted and not easy to answer because there's going to be steps to this. So let's start off first
Okay.
with your clientele. Now,
Okay.
just for people listening, his clientele, and I'm just going to list a few out here: the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Ralph Lauren, New Balance, and I can go on and on and on. And for somebody that wants to take your projects from beginning to end, let's just start off with the first part. How does someone even find these clients? Do they find you? Do you find them? How do you even collaborate to say that you guys are going to do a project together?
Well, firstly, as you mentioned, various different clients and in different industries like music and entertainment, and then fashion, and I think what I always set out to do is I really want to move people somehow. I want them to look at it and feel move them. So and that works in any industry, any field. If you're inspired. And I see a lot of artists that look inspired, and you can tell the ones that are inspired. And inspired is a big, wide term, but you could basically just say it's someone that moves you, or is doing something a little different that actually might trigger even an emotional reaction, right? So that works in any field. So that's a good thing, and that's a good place to start. And then I've always done things I really like, and when I take jobs that I really like. Of course, there are times when you need money, obviously, and you take a job because you have to take it. And I think everyone has done that. But if you could pick and choose, and I often also take jobs that don't pay as much and I've done this my whole career, because I want to do it, and I know that number one, I'll enjoy it. Number two, even if I'm not making as much money on it, I can show it on my social media, and I could get other jobs like it, which may pay me better, right? And I enjoy doing it, so it makes sense to do that. I've never thought of myself as someone trying to work in a specific industry or genre, or specific industry, really. I've never said, I want to only be in the music industry, or I only want to do fashion, or I only want to do, print media or whatever. So that has always been my outlook. My parents always told me as I was growing up, and I tell my kids, do something that you love, and the work will come, and the money will come also. Right now during the pandemic, I don't know,
Sure.
but hopefully things will get better. I think they will eventually. But so people have seen my work in. So one of my clients, for instance, has been Universal Music, and they represent many different bands. So I've had the opportunity to work with them and work with different bands, and that's been great. And then Hard Rock International hotels saw my work, my rock and roll work, and they thought it'd be great for the hotel. So now I'm not doing. So I was doing sort of merchandise and posters for Universal Music, but Hard Rock like my work for their rooms, and to put in the hallways. So then I was creating work for the hallways and sort of for hotels, which is really amazing and a totally different thing, really, and gave me great freedom to create work that was not necessarily related to fashion or t-shirts. And I should just also say that I work with my wife as well, and she's a very talented painter. So it's nice for us to be able to work together, and especially for the sort of hotel projects, where it requires a lot of time and painting and many different pieces of art. She helps me, and I usually design it, and then we sit together and she paints, and we do work on it together. But getting back to your question, yes, it's different fields. I've never set out to be in a particular area, but I think that creating work that hopefully moves people. A lot of people in different fields, people are interested in illustration or artwork for hotels or t-shirt design, will have come to me because they feel like what I do can apply to what they need. Basically.
Yeah. It's the hardest thing I think for a designer or an artist is to create work that evokes emotion. To be indifferent to somebody's work is probably the opposite of what you really want. So
Sure.
if you're doing work that evokes emotion and people gravitate to it, and you actually are. I don't know if it's aggressively, but if you're putting your work out there for people to see, it sounds as if people might find you and opportunities might arise. So let's
Hmm.
just say now you've paired up with a client. Now, for
Hmm.
people that want to know your process, like for me, for instance, in graphic design, I don't know why there's a lot of distinction in my mind that you have to. There's a lot of working with the client and what they want. Now, with art, they're pursuing you because you have a distinct style. So, could you just walk us through the process of what they ask you to do, one of your projects, and how much? I mean, how's that process look like? Do you have to do a bunch of different concepts before you actually finalize it? Like, how did you just if you can walk us the process from after they
Sure.
meet you, what they ask you to do, and how that process looks like before you turn in the final product?
Sure. So from we'll talk about a graphic design job, because like I might get a job that's to do a painting, for a hotel, which is different. That's a different process. But the process for graphic design, let's say, for instance, fashion, right? And let's say a company comes to me and they want to do hang tags, right? Or a branding hang tags, that type of thing, and T-shirts. Usually, in fashion, things are seasonal, right? So they say, okay, we're going to do fall 2021, and here are the themes that we have, that we're working with the designers and with the clothing. Uh, can you do 10 designs related to, let's say fall sports or something? I'll go ahead and do research, and normally they're picking me because, I have they see my other work, and they'll often, I ask them, I say, can you pick out pieces I've done in the past that that
Oh,
you like
okay.
me possibly to emulate. So that's sort of a big deal. I recently, actually, someone contacted me, and they said, "Oh, we want you to do work," and they actually sent me things that they like, and they wanted me to copy them. And I said, I generally don't do that, and you have much better. The work will be much better if you give me a little space and let me design different ideas for you. But generally, they know my work, and I so I'll create. If they need like 5 designs, I'll create. Often 8 or 9 designs,
Wow.
and sometimes they'll be more sketch form though, and they usually will be.
Sketch without. I'm sorry to
And
interrupt, but sketch. Just so I understand.
it's okay.
Sketch without
Yeah.
without watercolor being applied to it yet, or just.
It might be a watercolor sketch actually, so it might be done quicker in watercolor, or more finalized even. It depends. And then they'll from based on that they'll break it down, and then there's always a challenge of pricing for it. And I know there'll probably be designers listening to this as well, and I'm sure you all understand that it's every client is different, and you try to have sort of one way to bill, and often it's difficult because every client is different.
Sure.
And someone might want to see 10 designs and choose one, and another client you do 10 designs and they'll love all of them. So it could be a real challenge. And what I've tried to do in the past, and I know I don't want to not answer your question, but I'm just thinking about this right now, for billing, is try to get a retainer if possible. Now, I've been doing it a while, and people know me, and I have some reputation a little bit. So I'm able to often, good reputation, hopefully, often say I want a retainer situation. So I'll work for 3 months at a certain amount per month, or it's something to that degree, like a retainer. And this way, I know I'm going to be earning a certain amount per month for the next few months, and I don't have to worry about each individual design, which is like impossible to do. That doesn't always work, but I've had success with that formula. So that's something other artists might want to think about. So as far as the specific process, I'll do sketches, generally speaking. They'll choose what they like, and then I'll do more finished artwork. And the artwork will often start with a watercolor, and then I scan it into the computer. And I ended doing quite a bit in Photoshop. So I'll clean it up a lot. I'll fix the type up as much as possible, and depending upon what the final result or who the client is, I'll use Photoshop more or less, depending upon what the final result is. So it's really, even though it looks like everything is hand done, it's really the hand done part is actually a small part of the process, to be honest with you. lot of it's Photoshop.
Gotcha. I just think that I like,
Yes.
and thank you for even giving more in-depth answers, because I think one of the goals of this podcast I'd like in the future,
Hmm.
once we start building a library of guests, is to share sort of the things behind the curtain that other designers are like, wow, I've always wondered that, or how he or she has been successful. Can I take some of that and learn? No, that's very interesting. And so,
Hmm.
so I can understand even better, you're never turning in your actual original artwork. You're turning in a digital form that's been manipulated. So
Yes.
you still have all your originals.
Yeah, I know. There's so it sounds a little bit sad, but I end up throwing out a lot of it because
What?
a lot of it's not. A lot of I'll do a painting and it'll be like 70% there, or less even, right? I scan it in and then I really finish it up, and I make it tight, and then it's I perfect it, and that's obviously what I send to the client, and it's a digital. It doesn't exist in the real world anymore. It's basically on the computer. It's digital. So the artwork that I have is sort of the actual material artwork pre scanning on the watercolor paper is it's nice, and I'll give it to my daughter or or something, but I can't it's as far as anything I can make money on is pretty much worthless. So, but the real thing is in the computer. So I end up getting rid of a ton, because you can't even imagine how much paper I produce painting, and my wife with me as well, and so yeah, that happens. That happens, and a lot of times it gets changed so much in the computer that the original is not kind of
I get what
meaningless.
you're saying. So you're saying that if you were to look at the raw watercolor, that base
Yes,
watercolor is there because it's needed to show that handcraft part of the design, but it's not
right.
finished. So like you
Yes,
said, it may be 60 or
yes,
70% there, but so seeing that raw, it doesn't quite look like the final product. I get what you're saying.
right. Yeah, yeah. And then when in the computer also, I adjust that. A lot of the stuff I do, I do color too, of course, but a lot of it's black and white. And once I darken it in the computer, and it looks, I increase the contrast, and until it looks like, and in the perfect world of Photoshop, you can make things perfect, right? Yeah, the original is sort of, it's not that important to me, I guess, you know.
Let me ask you a question. You made me think of something, but some of your personal work, are you
Hmm.
able to, since it's all digital, puts
Hmm.
itself digitally, could you like do a number, like, hey, I'm only going to do about 25 of these. I'm going to number them and sign them.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you mention that, because I'm in the process of doing that now. So, because and it's always, to me, it's always a push and a pull between doing fine art and doing graphic design, and not, or just more commercial oriented art. And I really love the fine art part of it. That's kind of in my blood even a little bit more than the commercial art, and they're different. And we could talk about the motivations for both
Yeah.
as well. But yes, so that's what I would do. I would print out probably prints of the final artwork, and number them. So that's what I'm working on, and so watch in the future, and hopefully I'll be
Where
selling a
can
lot of
we?
those.
Where are you planning to sell those? Are those going to be on Etsy? It's going to be on your website.
It's a bit of a challenge. I'm trying to figure it out right now. There's a lot of actually really very good art websites as well, like Saatchi, and there's like Absolute actually has a site for art, and there's a lot of art oriented portals right now, fine art oriented portals. So I'm trying to decide which one to do. In the meantime, I'm building up the artwork as well. So I'm not sure yet. If anybody has a suggestion, please email me, or write to me on my site and let me know, because I would love to. I'm trying talking to a lot of people right now and trying to figure that one out.
Well, you can definitely count me in for one of those. I don't have an office yet, but when I
Okay.
do, my goal is to have a man cave that has like inspirational work from a lot of different people, and your work is definitely inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
absolutely.
But I was going to say, as far as the motivation between doing, commercial art or design work is, there's a communication between myself and the client. And the client usually gives me, obviously what they need, and so the motivation is there, the communication is there, and the there's not this much coming from me. I'm more like a bill, like a backboard, right? I mean, I bounce the ideas back and I create something. But when I'm doing the fine art aspect of my work, it's 100% me, right? So I have to find different motivation, and I always found to be equal. I think fine art is just as important as commercial art. Commercial art is just as important as fine art. I think they're both can be done on a very high level, and we've seen that with great artists in both fields. And I know that because I've gone to art school and I've studied both, and the artists in the fine art world, painters and whatnot, are definitely a bit snobbier, for sure, because they think that they think they're doing God's work, and in a way, yeah, I agree, but to a point. But I don't think it's any more important than commercial art, also, because they're also doing God's work. I'm not that religious. I don't know why I keep saying God's work, but it's you can move anybody in commercial art. You can move people in fine art as well. And I think my fine art has been very inspired by my commercial art as well, because I want to communicate something. I don't want it to be on a sort of a level where it's so esoteric that only a few people could really understand it. I've always appreciated fine art where it would engage people. In a museum, you can go or anywhere else, So I think that's been an interesting journey for me, working on and straddling both fields.
Well, let me ask a couple more questions related to a young artist, because I think as a young creative that is, maybe getting out of high school and might have a lot of different avenues, because that's the great thing about living today, is that in the creative world, there is so many different disciplines that anybody can get into. And for somebody that's looking at your style and saying, you know what, I want to do that, what kind of advice would you give somebody who, maybe knows a little bit of graphic design and Photoshop and all the digital stuff, but fancies themselves as an artist? What are some of the advice you would give into getting into this field?
I would say, look around. I mean, we have the internet now, which is amazing, right? And I didn't really, I've been around long enough that when I was first starting out, that I didn't have no Google.
Oh, I understand.
So
yeah.
I would look at books,
Yeah.
So I think that you look at artists that inspire you, and if you want to be a commercial artist or a graphic designer or do advertising design, look at people who inspire you, and it might not only be other commercial artists. It could end up being fine artists too, and really see what motivates you. Think about what motivates you to get started, and that sort of spark and that love, and then research and feed that spark. And look around and in the world and see what's motivating you on an emotional level, I think. Yeah, because I think that's what drives, for me, it's always been what drives me. I see something that I love and I think I want to do that. I want to emulate that, or I can build on that maybe. Go to museums too and travel. And don't just get it. And sometimes your teachers aren't always right. And I experienced that a lot in school. It's sometimes they're very narrow in what they expect. And even when I studied fine art too, a lot of teachers were very narrow, and they said, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And, expand your horizons as much as possible and bring it into your art. I know it's these are big generalities, but I think, as far as motivation, you want to feed, the love that you have for what you're doing. So if you're going into art and you love it, then you want to keep feeding that and expanding and bringing all different kinds of things into it that you're learning. That's does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to. What I really picked up on there is, and as a creative myself, like there are times where, at least for me, there's peaks when you're really inspired and you want to do a lot of work, and there's times where you're like, man, at least for myself, like I'm not in a period of my time where I want to do a lot of work. And you said a lot of things there that maybe inspires you. And for me, I mean, typically get inspiration, and my field is graphic design. I get inspiration from people that are typically outside of my field. illustrators, concept artists. I look at a lot of work. You mentioned a lot of things there.
Sure.
What do you do to keep inspired and excited and wanting to do more work?
I think doing my fine art, and also for the other thing I didn't mention is that if you find that you're getting work and the work is you're earning money from it, and that's good, but you find it's not inspiring, then do a project on your own, and create something that if you want to get more into illustration, or you feel like you want more illustration in your graphic design, for instance, create a project for yourself and do it and show it. And show it on, and it's amazing. We have social media now, which is an amazing thing. And you could pluck something up on Instagram, and thousands of people will see it instantly, tens of thousands even. So that's a way to expand your horizon. So if you're interested in something, put it up. I have projects that I won't even put on my social media because I don't want to keep doing them. If I'll get a project and I'm like, okay, this is cool, and I'm glad it helped me this month, or helped me pay for tuition for somebody, but I do not want to keep doing this type of work, so I'm not going to advertise it.
Sure.
But what I will do, and I still do artwork that I love to do, and I put it up on my social media because I want to do more of it, and that's who I want to be. I want to be perceived as that person. So whatever you're putting on social media, this is your face to the world. So you want to put up work that people that you want to keep doing, and inspire people to hire you to do that kind of work.
And is there any artist that you get inspired by, either living or non-living? I mean, is there work that you like to look at?
Yes, a lot. But I think lately I've been looking even at a lot of medieval and Renaissance artists, and how they the composition and what's their motivation, be it religion or other things, and what motivates these the people from time periods to paint. But currently, there's a lot of great designers, and there's been a whole movement of artists that do things by hand, and over the past 10 years or so, and I'm motivated by looking at them and the people who I follow on Instagram, and I think that I'm trying to think of sort of like the John Continos, and there's honestly I there's so many, I can't even think of any right now. But there's I love it all, and I've been following people on Instagram for years, and I'm always inspired by other people's work, and also the sort of the aggregate Instagram accounts that it's good to follow those as well, like some typography Instagram accounts that'll aggregate a lot of artists together, and put a different one every day, and to me, social media has been very inspiring.
Sure.
Absolutely. To see what's going on. Behance is great. I would recommend that to a young artist also. It was bought out by Adobe, but there's millions of people on it. So that's, and also don't feel down if you're putting stuff up and you're not getting that much of a response. You just got to keep doing it over and over and over again. And pay attention to what people are reacting to also, because that could be helpful. Yes.
Fantastic. I'd love to transition to your background, because I think a lot of, and maybe not so much these days, but back in my time, and I don't want to date myself, when you told your parents that you wanted to pursue something like this, they would gasp for air because they're thinking that they'll have to support you all their lives. So
I don't think you're dating yourself. I think that still happens.
I was hoping that technology actually maybe helped, some of that. But so,
right.
How did it all start out? Like, were you just did you love art from a young age, and you just kept on going from to honors art to AP art?
Yeah, I was very lucky. My parents were very supportive always, and I was very lucky. They're in education, and my father was a professor. Mom's a social worker, And they always nurtured the art, from a very young age. When I was 3, 4 years old, I started drawing, and they were always supportive. They got me art lessons, and they took, I traveled when I was a child, like 4 or 5 years old. My father took sabbatical leave, and we went to Europe, and we traveled around Europe for 7 months, and we went to all the
Oh, wow.
museums, and that was always the focus of my, we lived in Rockland County. We used to drive into New City. I mean, we lived in Rockland County, New City. We used to drive into Manhattan, and we used to go to the museums, regularly. So I was lucky in that they thought it was a fine direction, but like I said, I was told I should study some graphic design first and then do my fine art, which I did. But so I think that for those who are interested, and also those who have children who are interested in art, if they love it, let them do it. And there's a lot of work in graphic design nowadays. A lot, as we know, everything is designed.
So when you I'm assuming you went from art from, as you got older and you went to high school, did you go
Right.
to, was there an AP art program in your high school, or was it honors art?
No, it was just a regular art. I didn't go to. I went to public high school, and it happened to have I was lucky to have a good art teacher, and but I was really self motivated. It was something I was good at. It was something I identified with, and growing up, it's always good to have something you feel. I think so. I think about it with my kids too. You want them to feel confident about something, feel good about themselves, and it's good. And that was my thing. Art was my thing. I was good at it. People knew me as an artist, and I identified with it, and I was able to continue on with it. And I was in that way. I'm lucky because some people identify with playing baseball, or some people identify with, and they might be very good in high school, but it's the kind of thing where you can't really become a pro baseball player, So but the great thing about art, you can, but it's unusual. Yeah. The great thing about art is that you have it. It's for your whole life. And some sports are like that too. But the great thing about art is that you can actually make money doing it too. So I was able to. I had that, and then I ended up going to various art colleges, and I got my master's, as I mentioned, and so it's been I've been lucky, and I've been home with my kids. I've always worked from home, freelancing, which has been amazing, and with my kids as they grow up. So it's I can't think of a better field, to be honest with you. It's creative. You get to do what you want for the most part, and you make of you're in charge.
Sure.
You could be as successful as you want.
Let me ask you, because it's funny because I still like to reminisce and go back to the time when I went to school and just being with your peers. You could either have it be something you enjoy, or you can always look at it as a lot of competition and you feel a lot of stress, or you can maybe look at the competition and actually enjoy it. Either way, I really enjoyed my time being around other artists. How was your experience when you were in college and you were trying to pursue your degree?
My experience was always very good. My first 2 years of school, I went to school at FIT for advertising designs, which that's here in the city. It's called the Fashion Institute, and they have a design program. At the time, it was called advertising design. But those 2 years, I met my best friends, for life. I'm still good friends with them. And then following that, I went and got a bachelor's in fine art and painting from another school here in the city, and then I met good friends. I've always had great experiences because I've always liked other artists, and we've always had had things in common. And yes, there's competition, but competition is pretty healthy as long as you look at it the right way. And and I've always had confidence too. I think it's important to sort of be confident and do what you can do to be confident and have faith in yourself and believe in yourself. And that takes a little time sometimes. And some people have it from the beginning, and some people have to develop it. But the confidence to think that you could be competitive, someone could be better than you. I'm sorry, at something, and then you could learn from them. And that's look at it in a positive way, rather than be despondent and feel like everyone's better than me. Everyone's learning all the time. Even now, I'm always learning. As people you could be in your 60s, 70s, and still be learning.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that confidence, because confidence is it's an interesting word, because there's going to be times, at least in most people's education career, where you will feel insecure. You will feel someone's not going to respond well to one of your works, and there's going to be questions to whether or not you belong in this field. And now you've mentioned sometimes, I think you mentioned something about a professor, and we don't need to know names here, but there are going to be times when someone is harsh on or critique your work. Is that confidence come into play when you feel like, you know what, I will take that criticism, I will learn from that, but I know I'm meant to do this? Like, how does that confidence, because I think young artists typically might feel that confidence,
yes,
varying at times.
Well, yeah, I think the confidence and feeling good about yourself is the bridge, that'll get you to the other side when you have problems. Listen, I've gotten fired from jobs when I first started, before I started freelancing, or it happens, and sometimes it's just conflicts of personality, and it has nothing to do with your work also. But sometimes it is your work and they're looking for something else. And, what I do now is not everyone's cup of tea, and, it might not be right for a lot of jobs. So you have to dealing with the rejection is, it's part of the job, it's part of the deal. And it's, but it's like that in life, you could ask a girl out on a date or a guy on a date and get rejected, and that happens too. So but it's the same. It feels the same, right? If that happens, it feels the same. But when you're getting, someone doesn't like your work, it's sort of like a personal, but it's not personal. It's you're dealing with another person. They might be looking for something else in the artwork, or or if you're asking someone on a date, they might be looking for a different type, right? It's just this is how things are, and you have to believe in yourself. And once you make a decision that you want to go into the field, and you have built up a little bit of a backlog of work, and you feel good about it, then you have to think about your accomplishments. What you've achieved up to that point. And if you get fired from a job, you're like, well, listen, you have to say to yourself, I'm good. This didn't really work out. You have to persevere. And I think once you decide to be in the field, you have to really develop that confidence and knowing that you're good, and feeling like you're good at what you do, and build on the good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back a little bit to your work, because there's a couple of questions I forgot to ask you. One in particular is, did you always know that your style was commercially accepted and celebrated? I mean, I'm thinking this question because I think I've seen some artists that, and some may not have they might not want to go your route. They may want to just produce their art that is their art, and there's no negotiating, and they don't care about the commercial success. But you have a lot of commercial success. Now, if an artist comes to you and his or her work is stylized to a point where it's hard to predict this stuff, but say it's not embraced commercially, would you advise them to? And they say they wanted to go your route. Do you just tell them to keep on working that style they have?
I think you got to that in that situation. You got to have your sort of a lot of pans on the fire. Then so and now is kind of a good time to do that, because you can show different styles on your social media, right? So when you could possibly have an illustrative style and have a Instagram account for that, and then have a more commercial style and have an Instagram for that. That's a possibility, or you can show both. I think you got to be able to have a few pans on the fire, and I've done that my whole career. I've had clients say, it's great you're doing this type of work, but we need something else. For a very long time, my client was Tommy Hilfiger. and great client. That was a retainer situation. I was working monthly for them, but I had other clients too,
Sure.
right? So and and it was, they would have different seasons and different styles they needed, but I really wanted to continue working with them because I had a family, so I would adjust, and I would do different types of work, and that's okay to do, you know. So like I said, you don't have to show all of that on your Instagram or on your social media. You show the stuff that you want to, the direction you want to go in. So on my Instagram, I only I show what I feel good about, but I show what the direction I want to be going in, and I think that's a good way to look at it. So my advice would be to pursue what you want to do, even if it's not in the norm, but be willing, be flexible to do other things. Don't be so hard headed that you say you only want to do one thing. I mean, that would be fine if you have a trust fund.
Yeah.
But not, you do have to make a living. So, and especially in this kind of commercial world, you want to be able to be flexible. So you got to be flexible, do what you want to do, and there is enough time in the day to do a lot of different things. I have 2 kids, I got a family, I got all kinds of things going on, and I have clients, and then I still have time to do my fine art too, and I stay up later, and I don't sleep as much. But I do it. I get to do it.
Well, and I wanted to ask you this because I'm scrolling to your work, and you have the luxury of having so much work that's all fantastic. And typically, when I see portfolios, I can almost guess what their top 3 favorite or most they're the most proud of. I have that, right. My Mount Rushmore of my
sure.
work. I can't pick one out because they're all so good. What do you consider your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 or 5 favorite pieces that if you only had to show 5, you'd be like, this is the 5 or 4 I'm showing?
Right. Let's see. I think I really enjoy when I do some sort of art that's more fine art oriented, and then someone sees it and they say, well, hey, that looks good for my brand, right? Because my original intention was not a commercial intention, but someone sort of said, this is communicating to me and moving me, and I think he could sell our product. So for instance, recently, I did sort of just for fun and for myself, sort of cowboys on horses and with typography.
Yeah. I see that.
Right. So I did a bunch of, that's just for myself or just for my fine art purposes. I did that, and then Wrangler saw it, the company Wrangler, and they really liked it. So they hired me to do artwork for them, and I've been working on a bunch of different projects for them. So I find that very that's inspiring to me. When I could do my own personal work and then it feeds and it bleeds into my commercial work, I think that's pretty cool. But as far as one piece, it's tough. I like the pieces where I combine type and image.
Those are
which
great.
I guess is everything.
Yeah, those are awesome.
But to type an image and it's sort of in a way that's different, and or I like using typography in a way that's that feels different than what's been done in the past, and it's not even much. I really enjoy people looking at something and saying this moves me. So it's not as much for anything my personal favorites, but I really love when people say to me, this is like you're scrolling through my work now and enjoying it. I mean, that means everything to me.
It's typically think this way, and it's hard for me to think this way, but I force myself to think this way. For people listening who are young artists, just put pen to pencil, move, do something. I'm a firm believer, like putting your hand in water, and then when you wiggle it, the ripples are your opportunities. All right. So I find a lot of people sometimes they do a lot of work, but they don't probably put the time in to showcase that work anywhere, or they do it minimally. How much time do you actually put into putting yourself out there, or maybe are you established enough to this point where people just come to you anymore and you don't have to do that?
Um, well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I have spent a lot of time on social media. There were times when I was focusing, every day trying to post something, and I kind of go through waves of doing that. Lately, I haven't, and sometimes it's a little challenging for me to post work I'm doing, because if I'm doing a lot of fashion work now, and I think because of the pandemic, uh, for some reason, the fashion companies gratefully are all still in business, so they're hiring me. So I'm doing a lot and the fashion work I can't post right away. I have to wait like a
Oh,
year,
gotcha.
which is really, really frustrating. Because I have all this great stuff I want to put up. I'm really excited about it, but I can't put it up yet. So that gets in the way. But aside from that, um, I have been involved in various posting, and then getting picked up a lot by other aggregate sort of typography sites, and um, it's been huge for me. Social media. I mean, I've only been doing it, I think, for maybe, I guess, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. Prior to that, I don't know what the heck I did. Frankly, how I got work. But it's everything now. I mean, nowadays. So you really have to post. You got to put stuff up. And I know sometimes people might be shy about it, or might feel like it might not be good enough. But put it up and see how people react to it. And actually, for me, it's a great gauge, because not that people's reaction or what people think are the most important thing, obviously. However, it's important to see what people are reacting to, regardless. It's just part of the equation, right?
Sure.
Especially in the commercial world where you're trying to sell and get work. So you post things, you see how people react. If you feel like no one's liking something and you're embarrassed about it, just take it down. But at least just put things up and build it up, and then suddenly you might get picked up and someone might repost it. Right. That's Pinterest has kind of been great for me, because I've posted stuff on it, and then it gets reposted, and then in Google, you want your artwork to show up on Google as much as possible. So it's very helpful. So I think, but your question was, how much time do I put in social media? And generally speaking, I would say
Okay.
a lot.
Okay.
A lot. I think about it a lot.
Let me.
It's my advertising from myself.
Absolutely. I'm hoping that young artists and artists out there that listen to that and understand the return on something like that. And let me ask you,
Yeah.
we're coming near to the end here. I want to ask you, lastly, what do you define? Because the definition of success is different for a lot of different people. But for you, what's your definition of success, and what makes Glenn, when you say to yourself, you know what, I'm happy, and this is what I consider my piece of heaven?
Yeah, I would say really, it's a little cliche maybe, but it's doing what you love, and waking up in the morning and saying, oh, I have this great project today. I'm really excited to sit down and do research about it, and to start working on it. Doing what you love is the most important thing. And then, of course, there's other mitigating factors that fight against it, like, having to pay rent and various societal responsibilities. But I do strongly believe that if you do what you love, and you're focused on it, and you have even a modicum of talent, doesn't have to be tremendous amount of talent, natural talent. You just you have to have some talent, and most people do when they're interested in something. Just focus on it, and enjoy it, and look around and see what other people are doing, and get inspired, and try to move people with what you're doing, because it comes back to you, and then you'll feel that. So I think that's what success is.
Perfectly said. And Glenn, I personally want to thank you. This first, and I haven't released some of these podcasts yet, but the first handful, I have to leverage friends and who are in industry, and you're the first that actually that I reached out to who I don't personally know, and you've made this process really easy from beginning to end. And I want to thank you for sharing your creative journey. Once again, just here in the end, just tell everybody again where they can find your work.
Okay, you can on Instagram. It's at Glenn Wolk, GLENN WOLK, and GlennWolkDesign.com is my website. And thank you, and good luck.
Absolutely. Thank you. And hopefully we get you here back here in the future again. I'd love to get your opinion on things.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
thank you again. Goodbye, everyone, and take care.